Israel has been systematically dispossessing, uprooting, slaughtering and imprisoning Palestinians in absolute flagrant disregard for international law and the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people for 8 years now. It has done so with the intent to destroy our people. I stand before you today on behalf of the persecuted people, fighting to survive, to live freely in our land. As I address you today, the Palestinian people are being starved, bombed, and forcibly displaced by Israel, their unlawful occupier. Israel has not allowed food, water, medicine, and medical supplies or fuel into Gaza for the past 2 months, a policy supported by the highest court in Israel, which rejected petitions to allow aid into Gaza on several occasions. This man-made catastrophe of unprecedented proportions targets life itself. Death looms large, including by starvation, which has already claimed the lives of 59 Palestinian children. The UN Secretary General has described Gaza as a killing field, where civilians are in an endless death loop. Mr. President, we are here today because the General Assembly asked the Court to determine the legal obligations of Israel in relation to the provision of urgently needed humanitarian assistance by the United Nations, other international organizations, and third states, and in relation to the exercise of the right of Palestinian people to self-determination. This request was provoked by the international community's outrage at Israel's methodical targeting, banning, and obstructing of said parties, including its legislation banning the United Nations Relief and Works Agency of Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, from fulfilling its UN mandate in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. There can be no doubt about the Court's jurisdiction in these proceedings. The question raised by the General Assembly is plainly a legal one. It specifically asks the Court to advise on Israel's legal obligations under international law and other rules of international law. Nor is there any reason, let alone a compelling one, for the Court to decline to answer it, as the Court has already determined in 2 prior advisory opinions. The question of Palestine is fundamental to the United Nations and its mandate in this case. This request was provoked by the international communities. During this presentation, the State of Palestine will present evidence on the devastating immediate, intermediate, and long-term consequences of this unlawful Israeli policy on Palestine and its people, on every aspect of their fundamental rights and continued existence. The State of Palestine will also present the Court how Israel's prohibited conduct extends to the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, because the target of these actions, by admission of top Israeli leaders, is the permanent annexation of the Palestinian territory and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. It is a self-incriminating admission that debunks the security sham they used to justify their genocide, as we will also demonstrate in our presentation. Mr. President, members of the Court, before I go any further, allow me to first address the context in which these deliberations are happening. This legal and moral crisis is not 18 months old. Israel has been systematically dispossessing, uprooting, slaughtering and imprisoning Palestinians in absolute flagrant disregard for international law and the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people for 8 years now. It has done so with the intent to destroy our people and to thwart the realization of self-determination in their homeland. To implement this policy, Israel has waged a relentless campaign of erasure against Palestinian people, their demography, their material presence, their national identity, their history and heritage, and their very humanity. This campaign of erasure was a central hallmark of the Nakba that started in 1947, and whose darkest chapter yet unfolding before our eyes and yours. On 3 separate occasions in the past years, the court issued provisional measures ordering Israel, among other things, to ensure and facilitate the unimpeded flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza. Israel did not comply. On 19 July 2024, this court also ruled that Israel's presence in and control over the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful and must come to an end. The court also ruled that despite the illegality of occupation regime, Israel was still bound by its obligations under international law as an occupying power. These obligations include ensuring the welfare of the protected civilians. Israel defied this ruling and the rule of law, brazenly declaring instead its official policy of annexing the occupied Palestinian territory, forcibly displacing Palestinian people, weaponizing food and humanitarian aid, and negating refugee issue and their rights, including by banning UNRWA. On 21st of November 2024, the ICC issued arrest warrants for the Prime Minister of Israel and now his former Minister of War, in part because they intentionally deprived civilian population in Gaza of food, water, medicine, and other essentials. To summarize, Israel is an unlawful occupying power, standing trial for genocide. Its Prime Minister is wanted by the ICC. It's attempting to destroy Palestinian people and erase Palestine, including by barring and obstructing humanitarian organization, thus also violating its obligations under the UN Charter and other instruments of international law. That is the context of the question before you. Mr. President, members of the court, UNICEF says Israel's onslaught has killed and injured 100 Palestinian children in Gaza every day since 18 March 2025. This is in addition to the more than 15,000 children Israel has killed since the onset of genocide, and the thousands who are still missing under tons of piling rubble of what was once their schools and their homes. Israel's genocidal campaign has turned Gaza into the home of the largest cohort of child amputees per capita in the world. Their limbs are amputated without proper medicine or care, sometimes without so much as a painkiller. Many don't survive, like baby Sham Mharib, whose arm was amputated following a strike on her home 18 days ago. Israel's genocidal campaign has also targeted UN and other humanitarian workers and organizations in Gaza, killing over 408 UN workers, among them almost 300 UNRWA staff. They have also killed 27 Palestinian Red Crescent Society paramedics in Gaza and 113 civil defense first responders. These killings are deliberate, not accidental. This was proven repeatedly, including in January 2024, when Israeli soldiers killed 6-year-old Hind Rajab and her relatives, then murdered the Palestine Red Crescent paramedic who received permission to rescue Hind while she was still alive. It was proven once more last March when Israeli soldiers ambushed and killed 14 paramedics and humanitarian heroes. The soldiers then buried the bodies in a shallow mass grave alongside with their crushed ambulances and emergencies in an attempt to hide their crime, while top Israeli officials lied to the world about the murders. This is the jarring equation prompting our appeals to the court and these proceedings. Israel is starving, killing, and displacing Palestinians, while also targeting and blocking humanitarian organizations trying to save their lives. These grave crimes aim to hasten the forcible transfer and destruction of Palestinian people in the immediate term. They will also ensure that our children will suffer irreparable damage and harm, placing an entire generation at grave risk. Already experts have concluded that life expectancy in Gaza has been slashed in half since the onset of the genocide. Mr. President, members of the court, this targeting of life in the Gaza Strip has been ongoing for years and in grave violation of Israel's legal obligation as an occupying power and as a member of the UN. Israel began engineering food deprivation in Gaza 19 years ago, making the majority of civilian population dependent on food aid to survive. A senior Israeli official then said, and I quote, "The idea is to put the Palestinians on diet, but not to make them die of hunger." End quote. Since October 2023, the blockade has progressively turned into a total siege. The Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights said, "This siege is creating conditions that were incompatible with sustaining life or the continued existence of Palestinians in Gaza." These are the facts. Starvation is here. Humanitarian aid is being used as a weapon of war. All UN-supported bakeries in Gaza have been forced to shut their doors. 9 of every 10 Palestinians have no access to safe drinking water. Storage facilities of the UN and other international agencies are empty. More than 12,500 wounded Palestinians, including thousands of children, now require medical evacuation to have a chance at life. That is in addition to thousands of cancer and other patients dying slowly, dying in agony, and hundreds of thousands of children whose lives are in danger because Israel is denying entry of vaccines. Meanwhile, Israel continues to repeatedly, forcibly displace and starve the Palestinian population in Gaza. This UN-produced map illustrates how Israel has squeezed the population into a third of the Gaza Strip that it continues also to bomb. UNICEF, for example, has been forced to shut down 21 malnutrition clinics because of these repeated forced displacement orders. Israel has also waged a war on hospitals in Gaza, bombing them, laying siege to them, burning them, or leveling them to the ground. Israel has bombed and attacked all 36 hospitals in Gaza. The last hospital to be bombed was Gaza's Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital, an institution that has offered health to Palestinians since 1882. This hospital survived 2 world wars and many wars after, but Israel decommissioned it twice in the past 18 months. Israeli occupation forces have killed over 1,400 doctors, nurses, and other health workers. Some, like renowned surgeons Adnan al-Bursh and Iyad al-Rantisi, who were forcibly disappeared and tortured to death. Others, like director of Al-Awda Hospital, Dr. Ahmad Mhanna, was forcibly disappeared for over a year now, while director of Kamal Idwan Hospital, Hussam Abu Safiyi, continues to be unlawfully detained. Only a handful of hospitals continue to bravely function, thanks to the heroic Palestinian doctors who remain and the brave international doctors volunteering to assist them despite the dangers and severe Israeli restrictions. To understand this what this means in real bone-chilling terms, I ask you here this brief testimony of Dr. Muhammad Mustafa, an Australian doctor who was volunteering in Gaza last March.
We've worked throughout the entire night. We haven't stopped. The bombing has been non-stop. We've run out of ketamine, we've run out of propofol, we've run out of all painkillers. We can't sedate anyone, we can't give them any analgesia. When we intubate people, they wake up and they're choking because we have no sedation. There are 7 girls getting their legs amputated, no anesthesia. The bombing is still going on. The room is still shaking. I haven't slept. We went to bed at about 1 o'clock, and at 1:30 the bombing started. It's about 10 a.m. now. I've just gone back to my room. I'm lightheaded. I'm dizzy, and I mean, it was just mostly women and children, burnt head to toe, limbs missing, heads missing. You know, there's a video I put up on my story of me doing a chest drain. The gentleman that did the chest drain, and he died on the way to the CT scan. There's another video of 3 girls laying on a bed. That's his 3 girls, who are now orphaned. Their mother didn't even make it into the hospital. She was killed along with their other sister. I don't know what to tell you. I was here in June. Nothing to this intensity. This is unbelievable, and the bombing is still going on. The rooms are still shaking. The screams are everywhere. It's insane.
Mr. President, members of the court, the carnage and destruction extends to the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. There, Israel's killing of Palestinian civilians, including children, was record-breaking for 3 years in a row before 2023. Since the beginning of the year, Israel launched a military assault in the West Bank, unprecedented since 1967. Israeli occupation have demolished, razed and burned the refugee camps in Jenin and Tulkarem, forcibly displacing more than 40,000 Palestinians, and Israel has announced that the displaced will not be allowed to return. The World Food Programme reports a near 100% increase in Palestinians in need of food aid in the West Bank, impeding the presence and activities of the UN and international organizations must be viewed in the context of erasure and forced displacement. Mr. President, members of the court, before I stand before you today on behalf of the persecuted people, fighting to survive, to live freely in our land. This is our inalienable and most fundamental right. It is not anyone to give or withhold, as this court has repeatedly affirmed. That's really the heart of why Palestine and over 40 other states are addressing the court today. It is not about the number of aid trucks Israel is or is not allowing into the occupied Palestinian territory, especially Gaza. It is not about Israel destroying the fundamentals of life in Palestine, while it blocks UN and other humanitarians from providing life-saving aid to the population. It is about Israel unraveling fundamental principles of international law, including their obligations under the UN Charter. It is about Israel turning Palestine, in particularly Gaza, into a mass grave for Palestinians and those coming to their aid.